Hello, everyone. Last semester, I studied post-colonial literature with Professor Sank in the English department, and in my studies, I focused on British colonialism. At the height of the British Empire, England controlled 1/5 of the world's population. It was often said that the sun does not rise or set on the British Empire. In India, colonization began with the East India Trading Company, and for a few hundred years, conflicts between different political factions and religious groups rebelling against the British ultimately resulted in freedom in 1947. And this also was the year of the partition of India and Pakistan. In the Caribbean, English colonialism, again, was with trade, but this time it was slavery. And there was a triangle of trade between Europe, Africa, and the Americas, which involved bringing goods from Europe down to Africa to be traded for slaves, which were then shipped during a horrendous voyage over the Atlantic to the Americas. They were traded again for goods and back to Europe. Each island faced its own revolution, beginning with Haiti in 1804 and ending into the 1980s. After colonization, these nations were politically free, but they were still left to find their own cultural identity and history because they had been dependent on England, but England told them that they had no identity. According to the victor's history that England follows, where history is written by the winners, and therefore everyone else who is not part of that tradition doesn't get a say in the history books. So they were denied a culture, and their identity still depended on England. So their problem was searching for this repressed culture where they had no place to start because it was repressed. And in the Caribbean, this lost history was augmented by the mystery of the slave trip, which was never, we really don't know what happened. Okay. The first book I studied in this class was Salman Rushdie's Midnight's Children. In the book, narrator Salim Sinai is born on the stroke of Indian independence, which is August 15th, 1947. And as such, he becomes the symbol of India, and he's actually born with a map of India on his face. And through autobiography, he searches for his identity, but the problem is, as Arunya Srikas, I can't pronounce that, sorry, is that autobiography is a method of fictionalizing experience because it's done through memory, and memory is always uncertain because, as the Romantics tell us, it fades and changes over time. And also in his autobiography, he starts with his grandfather's history, which he can't possibly know, and then continues through his mother's history before getting to his birth. As Salim searches for his identity through this method of autobiography, his body begins cracking, literally, and as India falls apart. So here it seems like as Salim tries to control his history through writing, the cracks increase, which is suggesting that even as he's trying to control his history, it can't be controlled because he's losing control of his physical body. And during this time, India was facing a number of problems, namely with Kashmir. So ultimately, history is a set of fragments rather than one collective idea, just as India is made up of many cultural groups and religious groups and can't really be one whole India. And a quote from the book that really explains this is, a human being inside himself is anything but a whole, anything but homogeneous. All kinds of every which thing are jumbled up inside him, and he is one person one minute and another the next. The body, on the other hand, is homogeneous as anything, indivisible, a one-piece suit, a sacred temple, if you will. It is important to preserve this wholeness. Uncork the body, and God knows what you permit to come tumbling out. So this really explains the idea of the whole appears to be one singular entity, but within it, it's made up of many parts. Okay. I also studied Dream on Monkey Mountain by Derek Walcott, and he faces the same issue of searching for his cultural place in the world. He is the descendant of slaves, and in the modern day, and he's dreaming in the novel or play, and as he dreams, he's looking for a way to connect to his roots because he feels disconnected from his identity, and at first he's inclined to go back to Africa, and he's persuaded by this character Mystique, who is the symbol of African heritage. But he realizes when Mystique dies that he can't return to Africa because his place is in the Caribbean. Throughout the play, he's also haunted by a white apparition who is a symbol of the ghost of the colonizer. And England really never left their colonies because it will always have an influence on who they are. So these two, the African identity and the white identity, prevents him from finding his own. And as he's traveling on the road in his dream, he meets a group, and he kind of acts like a savior to them and gives a speech. I see you all as trees, like a twisted forest, like trees without names, a forest with no roots. Now sing in your darkness, sing out, you forests. You are living coals, you are trees under pressure, you are brilliant diamonds in the hand of your God. So at first he says that they have no history because they are forests with no roots. They have no origin, they're just there. But at the same time, he's saying to be strong and endure the pressure that they're under, because coals under pressure become diamond. So the lesson here is that after the trials of searching for the identity, they will have found it, and they are in control of their identity. Okay, so at the end of the play, Makak beheads this white apparition, and the apparition, as I said, symbolizes England. So he is physically taking control over England's hold on him and his people. Also, because white is always a symbol of purity, this is also a symbol of how pure identity and race does not exist. As with people in the Caribbean, they're a combination of many different tribes from Africa and English culture, so they are definitely not pure. He realizes that identity is a mixture, and he's released from the colonizer's power. Okay. So then, because he realizes that, or both of these characters, Salim and Makak, they understand that history is an accumulation of many pieces. But because these pieces don't necessarily form one specific whole, they can be reformed in many different ways. And so history and identity are amorphous and ephemeral, just as they can construct their history from different pieces, they can reconstruct it in different ways. and have control over their futures. They can claim their cultural heritage because of this control, and this claim frees them from the colonizer's power. Because they've reformed the idea of history, this goes completely against the linear colonizer's way of history, which is set in stone based on time and date and battles won. So, in conclusion, Walcott always uses imagery such as words written in sand, where the waves wash them away, which is a metaphor for history that can be written, washed away, and rewritten. So both authors are reminding people that just because they were controlled by the colonizer, they have control over their own destinies, and they can always change that identity.